So we're starting the second unit. So the start of this is about Venn diagrams. Right? So we need to learn what Venn diagrams are, what they represent, what we use them for. We also need to understand the correct notation. That was the third part there. Right? So we've got notation that goes along with it, special mathematical notation. So we need to learn those. I will say that there are questions in the exams. Normally they range from very easy to ones that will make you think and you may well get wrong. So it's definitely one that you have to focus on, to pay attention on. Right? So we're starting with being able to identify the different regions first, just in a simple way. We're going to then look at, if we have sets of numbers, where do they go? We're going to start with just 2 sets, and we will have to eventually get onto 3 sets that overlap, right? Or maybe not. So what we have here, we have this Venn diagram, and you did ask me the question, does it have to have the rectangle around it? And the answer is most definitely yes. Right? In an exam, if you are asked to draw a Venn diagram and you do not put the rectangle around it, you will lose a mark. Okay? So just remember that is a part, it's not a throwaway thing. Now the reason is because when we're dealing with sets of numbers, there is one important set that we need to consider first. And it is called the universal set. Okay? The universal set. Now the universal set is all the numbers that you are considering at this time. Right? Remember, don't write at the moment. Just put your pens down and listen, and then I'll give you some time to write what I'm writing. So the universal set is what we are allowed to use for this problem. Right? So within this rectangle must be every number that I've told you you're allowed to use, or must use, shall we say. Now, universal set has a particular symbol. I think in your IGCSE it is a wiggly E. You might see a fancy E shape. Or it will be called a U. And this rectangle, and normally you'll see it somewhere up there, to represent that the rectangle is the universal set. Okay. Now, we have 2 circles, A and B, and that means within the universal set, we have set A and we have set B. Okay. Those 2 sets contain elements of the universal set. There is nothing else within the universe. There'll be lots of other numbers, because how many numbers are there?
Trillions.
There are 100 numbers. Infinite number of numbers. So obviously that's why the universal set comes in, because we have to specify the numbers that we're interested in at the moment, and then we're expecting from within that set to have 2 other sets. Now, Venn diagrams can be drawn in different ways. I've drawn it like this to start with. What do you think I have suggested about sets A and B by drawing it as overlapping circles like that? What do you think? What do you think?
That some of the things that Claire's going to be splitting up can be separated.
Okay, so basically we're saying there are numbers in the universal set that are in set A and in set B, and there are some numbers that are in both sets, or some things that are in both sets. Okay? And that's what that is. So how many regions do we have in this Venn diagram?
3.
3. Are you sure?
4.
4. Okay. So we have a region here, which is actually all of this outside of the circles. I'll give you a chance to write in a sec. Right. The last thing I do before we have a region here, region 2. Okay. Switch off. All right. We have, so region 2, we have a 3rd region here, and we have a 4th region here. Okay. Now, what I would like you to do, so you can draw out your notes, I would like you, just in words, to think, how would you describe those 4 regions? So, for instance, if something is in region 1, it means what? Then I'll let you draw these and finish your notes there. Okay, so we're looking for definitions of regions, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now this is important. I'll give you a clue. There should be some words in there, I think 4 words that really should be used. Right, and those words might help guide you a little bit further. Because some of you have got great ideas. I think basically number 1 and number 3 are down, number 2 and number 4 need additions too. So I'm going to give you these words. Sorry, you go.
It's not red, it's purple. Whatever.
Blue, okay. The words are not,
Oh!
and, or, only.
That's that 4-letter word.
So maybe think of what you've written and maybe think, can you use any of those words? Actually, the word or we're not going to be using for these 4 yet. So actually the not, the and only can be used.
As separate. I thought you said not and or and like not and.
No, 4 words that can be used. Right, let's have a look then. So we are actually using these words to try and describe. Now they're very important words actually because we do eventually move on to probability using these. So those words and or and not apply very strongly when you start working with probability. I'm sure you've done that. So what are your ideas for the first region? What would you say?
Does not fit into the requirements A or B or both.
Anything else?
I was going to say that they were misfits.
Misfits, okay, put it that way.
Good word, Taylor. Good word.
And then there's the double ones that A or B.
Yeah, I like that as well.
They only fit
Simple language.
They only fit on that square category. Rectangle, not square.
Okay. I think the very simple ways, basically what you're all getting is not in A or B. Okay?
Or both.
Excuse me,
Well, if I say not in A or B,
Then it can't be.
it implies not in both either.
Can I just say the
You could add that. Pardon?
Can I just say the unfit?
Well, unfit.
That I've fit it up for the
Not,
circle. Just gonna be marked
I guess misfit would be a better way of saying that, but we wouldn't use that sort of word within mathematically. It is kind of, if you want to think of it as the misfits, the ones that are not in A or B, but technically we would say not in A or B. So again, you could say, if you want to, doesn't meet the requirements to be in set A or B is a nice way to think about it. Does not belong, but the word not and the word or comes in there. It's not in A or B. Alright? Yeah.
Only fits in the requirements of A.
So 2,
Yeah.
yeah. So I would say, in fact, I would just say
Only A.
only A. That's it. It only fits in A. Right? Therefore, number 4 is actually only B. Okay. Number 3 is
in both A and
yeah. So we
A
just
or
say A and B. Okay. For it to be in set 3, in region 3, it has to be in set A and in set B. You must be in both. Okay? Must be in both. Now, what we've also got to do, because we have to start shading these regions, is we have to be able to think, well, how would I describe them together? So, for instance, have a think. I'm going to ask you to think about it again. how would you describe, why did my pen?
I don't know.
Describe 2, 3, and 4 together. If you put 2, 3, and 4 together, how would you describe it? Okay. If I said, how would you describe 2 and 4? What would you say? Okay. If I said, now this is where we start getting a little bit more complex, especially when we get to the notation. If I said to you, for instance, describe 1 and 2 together. So if I were to say to you, well, if I'm allowed regions 1 and 2, what does that mean I'm allowed to do? Okay. So have a think. So how would you describe, again using those same words, what would it be if I was to consider all the regions 2, 3, and 4, the regions just 2 and 4, and the regions 1 and 2 together? How would you describe? Alright, so off you go, have a think. So, Maya.
Yes? Oh, well, I did 2, 3, 4 whole numbers.
2, 3, and 4 are whole numbers.
Yeah.
Well, the only problem with that,
That is nothing.
I haven't actually told you what goes in those regions, so it could be shapes.
Right.
So the numbers 2, 3, and 4 are not in the regions, they are labelled for the regions. So for instance, maybe I need to put this in context. If I say to you, the universal set has shapes in them, squares, rectangles, things like that. Set A might be four-sided shape, yeah. And set B might be shapes with parallel sides. So I've got 2 different sets. What would a shape be? How could you describe it if it was in a region 2, 3, or 4? So all I'm asking for is, without being specific, what would it be relative to the set A and B if it was in 2, 3, or 4? What would you
It
go?
all has signs in common.
So how would you describe those regions? If something was in regions 2, 3, or 4, it could be in set A, it could be in set A, or set B. Okay, now we're starting to use the right words. Or both. That's it. That's what you said. So set A, or set B, or both is what we would say. So 2, 3, and 4, regions 2, 3, and 4. Now that's because eventually you're going to have to shade regions in when they're described to you like this, but they won't be done in words, they'll be done in symbols. So we need to start thinking of them in this way. So regions, if I for instance said shade in the appropriate region, and I said shade in what you would be allowed if you were allowed set A or set B or both, you would shade in all 3 of those regions. Okay? So 2 and 4, we would say it is in. Right, I can see why you'd say that. We need to be more specific.
Nothing in A, B.
It's in A or B is fine, but not.
Not in 3 because they don't.
You're using the word. Yeah.
Not in both.
Not in both. There you go. The word common. Not in both. It's in set A or set B, but it's not in both. So, for instance, to put that in context, I could say you are allowed a starter, or you are allowed a dessert, but you are not allowed both. Okay. So then we could say the regions are, if we talk about dinner, if we talk about going to a restaurant, if we would say set A are people that would have a starter, set B are people that would have a dessert. The universal set are people that go to a restaurant. Set 1, region 1 would be all the people that don't have a starter and do not have Dessert. We would assume they would have a main, but that's not in our diagram. They wouldn't just go into a restaurant, have a seat. They might have a drink, I guess.
The other people.
Right. Region 2 would be people that only have a starter. Good. Region 3 would be people that
We have starters and desserts.
have starter and no. We were talking about just that 2 and 4. Region 3 is people that had both starter and dessert. I can never do that. Region 4 would be people that
And two have dessert.
had dessert but did not have
Starter.
starter. How would you describe the group of people represented by regions 1 and 2 then? People that either
Don't want anything at all.
did not have starter or dessert, but also people that had 1 and 2, a starter only. Yeah? So region 1 and 2 would be people that had no dessert or starter and people that had only a starter. So you can see how these words not, only, and really
Hang
on.
So for 1 and 2 already, maybe set A and
So 1 would represent not in either set,
Yeah.
and 2 would represent only set A. So we would say 1 and 2 would be not in set A or B, or in set only A. Okay?
Can you repeat that? Not in set A.
Not in set A or B, or only in set A. That's what you would say.
Got you. That is so convenient.
So let's think of it then. All right. Imagine I have drawn a big Venn diagram. I'd love to do this actually. Move on to say, but imagine I've drawn a big Venn diagram in this room, and the room itself is the universal set. You guys would be the universal set. All right. So maybe you could come up with 2 things to group yourselves. 2 different things. So you are the universal set, right? You guys. Could you come up with 2 things where some people are only one of them, some people are only the other one, and some people are both?
Yeah.
So,
Probably no.
write it down.
Yeah.
I would like you to draw, I'm not going to ask you, because it's your business what you write. I'd like to draw a Venn diagram, separate one. I would like you to think about regions 1, 2, 3 and 4. I would like you to call set A something, if it's people with long hair. Set B, people that always wear long socks. I don't know. Right? But you've got to try and think of 2 things where maybe some people don't fall into neither. Maybe you all fall into the circles. A region does not have to have anything in it. Okay? You understand the task?
Yeah.
Have a think. Don't take too long.
So should we break people like
No, I don't. I don't want you to put any names in. Just think. What does that region need to be? And you can think of the people that you would put in there, but you don't have to put their names in. Just in case they see and think, I don't belong there. Just have a think for yourself.
Wait, so what am I doing?
So you're drawing your Venn diagram.
I don't know what's Are there people, right, who's wearing white shirts?
No, I've not got white shirt. Well, you could say white shirt is different from a polo.
I'll do it again.
Shirts,
But you
polo.
can't already go to the
button down and a button down.
Yeah, you can't wear boots.
No, but that's not the question, is it? It's button down or not.
Yeah, but what about the middle?
But then what's your second set? You don't make the sets as button-down shirt, polo neck shirts, because you can't have an overlap. So you would pick something completely different. So you do button-down shirt and another set of dark hair.
I have 9. 9 are half brown eyes. That's me.
Yeah.
Oh.
So you would fall into the middle, into both.
Brown, so long hair.
I didn't realize.
Did you know that everybody has blue eyes under their brown eyes? Yeah. You get it surgically removed and have blue eyes.
Yeah, that's what
I don't need to.
I have blue eyes. Well, it's a fun fact for whoever's listening.
I didn't know.
I mean, my circles are a little wonky, but that's okay. Life goes on. So, I need a lady.
Right, I've got one other question, just to get this idea of the universal set. I've said this room is the universal set because by doing that, I make you guys, you are the universal set. Well, just because you are what I decided had to be in my Venn diagram. Are there other people available? So outside of our little rectangle, there are through the wall. We go. Look, there are different classes. We could consider every class a separate Venn diagram. If we wanted to, we could bring other things into our universal set, but then we'd have to say our universal set now contains more things, more elements. Right? So that's what the rectangle is for. It's to block off the numbers that we are considering. Otherwise, if I said to you, how many people are wearing a jumper and a tie? The question is, well, I don't know, because where are we considering? Are we considering just this room? Are we considering Bermuda? Are we considering the northern hemisphere of the planet? Are we, there is no limit. So when you don't draw your rectangle, you are basically saying there is no limit. So we draw a rectangle around the things we want to use. Theoretically.
So number 1 would be
Can I have earrings that brought her?
Say again?
Earrings that brought her.
Earrings, brown hair.
I said earrings and sweater.
I said tie and ponytail.
Okay.
Who's got
Right.
a ponytail?
How are we getting on? Is the understanding getting there? This final one then, just thinking. If I were to make set A, so think about this, pay attention. If I were to make set A odd numbers, so actually my universal set is integers between 1 and 10. That's the universal set, so I'm being very specific, 1 and 10. If I said set A was odd numbers, and I said set B was square numbers, would there be a number in region 3, odd and square, between 1 and 10?
Yeah. 81. Would you know
9.
1 and
9. Yeah, so remember, if my universal set wasn't there, you keep going forever. But if I say 1 to 10, 9 would fall in it. 1 as well. Yeah, good. Alright. Yeah.